Part 2 of session 33, and we'll finish talking about catalysts now in terms of harvest and polarization. Let's go. In the last video, we talked about catalysts at great extent and programming, and in this time, we're going to expand a little bit more on catalysts in terms of harvest and polarization. There's a couple of questions here and there that basically take us there, so that's the theme that I would call, is this second part. So again, we'll be having a lot more information about catalysts, and I think the important thing, and this is why, to me, this is such a crucial mechanic that exists in the universe, in our creation, in our lives, especially in our lives, because it does allow us to see how things work and we can recognize them as they happen. But more importantly is how we deal with them. So that could be a whole nother topic. So I try to delve into as much as I know myself, gauge in my experience and others, and based on the whole model that we have of the creation and how this works for ascension and the evolution of the soul mainly. So speaking of ascension, again, we're going to get to harvest a little bit, and a couple of questions or comments that lead to that. So let's start with the first question I have that we have left over from session 33. And Don is going to ask about a movie that I'm not aware of, haven't watched it, of course. He says, I will ask you if you are familiar with the motion picture called the 9 configuration. Are you familiar with this? Ra says, we scan your mind complex and see this configuration called the 9th configuration. So Don will ask, this motion picture brought out this point of which we have been talking. The entity, the colonel, had to make a decision at that point. I was just wondering, with respect to polarity, his polarization. He could have either knuckled under, you might say, to the negative forces, but he chose to defend his friends instead. Is it possible for you to estimate which is more positively polarizing, to defend the positively oriented entity or to allow the suppression by the negatively oriented entities? Can you answer this even? And see, before we get into the answer of Ra, you can see that, well, first of all, we don't need to know the 9th configuration movie just to know, what the character had to confront, which was, defend somebody or not, and allow, the negative forces to do what they had to do. So you can already see the premise of the question here. And, I mean, just based on what I know, you see that the real answer is, what would you want to do? What would you do? And either choice is fine as long as you agree with it. Ra's gonna give, a different angle and a slant on it. But that's basically what it is. And that's why, there's no actual question. When people ask you, normally, when they ask me, what do you think? You think I should do this or I should do that? If I say, I think you should do this, that's what I think, that's what I would do, but is that what you would want to do? And if you're confused, by me telling you something, it's not going to help you, it's just going to make you doubt even more, and say, all right, is it what he's telling me right or wrong that I should do something and then it would be right or wrong, so you start questioning even more. And that's not the idea. The idea is for you to genuinely, say, I did this, and spontaneously, not think about it too much. But, we have that issue anyway. So that's the kind of angle that Don is asking this question. And it's important, to know the real answer, which is really, your answer. Your truth is the ultimate truth. So Ra is going to say, this question takes in the scope of 4th density as well as your own. And its answer may best be seen by the action of the entity called Yehoshua, which you call Jesus. This entity was to be defended by its friends. The entity reminded its friends to put away the sword. This entity then delivered itself to be put to the physical death. The impulse to protect the loved other self is one which persists through the fourth density, a density abounding in compassion. More than this, we cannot and need not say. All right. So the context that they're putting it in is in terms of the third density and fourth density, because in third density and fourth density is where we have defensive action, where we have this reaction to defend the self, and there is not enough wisdom for us to understand the sovereignty of other entities to do what they have to do. There is still this sort of sensation of relatedness and closeness, almost like in third density especially. Of course, you feel this need, to defend the loved one, because there is this sense of separation. So, there's a lot of has to do with perspective in terms of consciousness and how you see this as an act of aggression or an act of damaging someone. So it's very much third density where we see this. In fourth density, there's still some of this, and this is why, again, I mentioned in the last video that there is this conflict or battle going between the Confederation entities and the Orion group of fourth density, because there's still this notion that we can defend ourselves and we can attack others. So that transcends after fifth density, and that's why Ra is saying, this is it persists through the fourth density. It's here in third density and then also fourth density. The example that they use, of course, is Jesus, because Jesus, knowing what he had to go through, he said, I put myself to the death. I surrender myself to the empire and let them do what they have to do. So, Jesus, it helps also to know that Jesus was working from fourth density love and compassion. That was his teachings. That was his catalyst. His catalyst was for him to go through this process, and because of this, he polarized to the point that he's now fifth density, and he transcended that point of view of compassion and full unconditional love. That's the lesson that he brought in here, to Earth, and I don't think we have paid much attention to that. But in any case, he didn't sacrifice himself in terms of the eternal being that he is. That was just his contribution to Earth. What we do with it, it's our business. See, it's not like we're letting down Jesus. Jesus did what he had to do. He moved on. That's just how it works. Of course, his compassion is still with us. His legacy and everything. But I guess I just don't want to have the picture of Jesus being kind of like disappointed at us, even though we can see it that way if it kind of incentivizes you or motivates you, but that's just how it is. So yeah, I think there's something else that I would say about Jesus. The part that they were, him being fourth density has that, possibility of defensive action, but because in the density of love and understanding, there is, that martyrdom that Ra talked about in Jesus, that he decided to go through martyrdom, which is, just put myself before anybody else for the sake of love and understanding or compassion with others. So because of those lessons that he was, undergoing in fourth density, he programmed himself to do just that, and at the same time leave a lesson here for eternity, or at least until the end of the cycle. So that's what it means. It really is. And I'll just add, in terms of catalyst is not meant to be processed in one way. It's meant to be processed by the entity in the way that it seems fitting. Catalyst will be shaped or changed or completely discarded depending on the reaction of the entity. So it's not like, if you're in a cyclical relationship, say, with the same sort of entity coming back over and over, different people, but just the same kind of entity, it doesn't mean that, you're failing at something. It's just that you're shaping that catalyst somehow by your own reactions and how you feel about it. And in the end, when you finally transcend that sort of catalyst that you were having, then it doesn't come anymore. I love that there is a way to see this, exactly what I just I explained, in the way that if you think about it, when you have a problem and you have this, this something's bothering you, could be something, I don't know, something leaves something dirty in the kitchen. Somebody leaves something dirty in the kitchen, and you see it all the time, and it bothers you, and it bothers you, and it pisses you off, and you all of a sudden realize, like, okay, what's the matter? It's dirty, it'll get washed, whatever. And you don't get bothered by it anymore. It will come back, meaning that catalyst is not so much the experience will be there, but because you have transcended that, you don't care anymore, and you may just laugh at how much you used to be pissed off at something that is irrelevant, because now you see it irrelevant. So it's not like, it's not going to come anymore. It's just that you as a person would not be bothered by it anymore, and that's where catalyst ends. Catalyst, it can be manifested as an experience or an event or situation, a person, but it really lies within the self to stop paying too much attention to it, or stop, whatever it may be, stop being bothered by it, stop being, madly in love with somebody, which, it could be anything. It's just how you perceive it, and then how you balance yourself to not feel, one way or the other. So always kind of like the middle way, which is what Ra always said in the past sessions. Look at something and look at the opposite. By doing that, you can always find the middle of it, because if you're only seeing one side of the coin, you don't know that there is another side, and you have a two-dimensional view of the coin where you can see, oh, okay, there's two sides, I can see the middle of it, and I can rest there. Or you can just move from extreme to extreme, doesn't matter. Anyhow, it doesn't matter because it's your choice, but the point is to transcend from the situation and move on. So in any case, let's go to the next question, where Don says, 33.12, thank you. As we near the end of this master cycle, there may be an increasing amount of catalysts for entities. I am wondering if, as the planetary vibrations mismatch somewhat with the 4 density vibrations and catalyst is increased, if this will create a slight amount of more polarization, thereby getting a slightly greater positive harvest because of this catalyst, and in the same way create a more negative polarization, and then get a slight amount more negative harvest by this mechanism of transition that is, unfortunately, somewhat more catalytic than it would be if the planet had reached a higher state of consciousness. Does this happen? So, to untangle and just kind of like refresh or abbreviate the question that Don is asking, let's put things into context. First, Don is knowing, or by knowing, he's asking that because of the difference between our own vibrations as a consciousness, a collective consciousness, and the physical vibrations of space-time right now going into 4 density, if that mismatch is causing more catalyst and will cause more catalyst for the entities to polarize either more positive or negative, that catalyst will be there, and if it will exacerbate the amount of catalyst that will happen. It's a very intelligent question, because when you see, especially at the end, like he says, if we would have a higher state of consciousness, then we probably wouldn't need that much catalyst. And that does make sense, but the answer is going to be a little bit more, I guess, more rounded in terms of how it works. And that's the answer, that we would expect from Ra at this point. But that is, that's basically what Don is asking. We have a mismatch of vibrations, very much, because Ra has said it, and they'll put it into context in the answer. And then, if this will create more polarization for the positive and the negative, having a little bit more harvest in the positive and also in the negative, because it's exacerbating the amount of catalyst that we can have. And by a result, of course, we could, because catalyst is not like a guarantee, you know, that we're going to polarize because there's more catalyst. I mean, you can have as many, and we can see it, you know, with the Great Awakening that's happening, how much catalyst there actually is, you know, for people to wake up and, you know, realize not only the physical matrix reality that we're living in, you know, how much the Orion group, I mean, we talk about the Orion group, but, you know, they call it the Cabal or the Matrix and the elites, the Illuminati, whatever, you know, whatever term you want to use for those of Orion, the Orion lackeys here. So there's a lot of that going on, and, you know, it just seems that people don't care, but the catalyst is there. Speaking of, you know, interdimensional beings and aliens and UFOs and so on, there has been a lot of disclosure between the last, I don't know, almost a year maybe? A year up to now, there's been a lot of disclosure, but people seem to not care. I mean, there is confirmation that there is life outside of this planet. I mean, think about the news that are exploding right now with this, what the officials have said. They said, yes, UFOs are a thing. So there is, obviously, by extrapolation, there is intelligence in other parts of the galaxy, at least, or other planets. Who knows? But people are just, you know, going around their business. And again, this is not, I mean, it may sound condescending when I say this, but it's just baffling to me that the information is there. Catalyst is available, people are not using it. So again, it just shows how much catalyst can be present in our own lives and we don't see it. So this is why the seeker, you know, it really is an internal thing where you just are more mindful about the things that are happening in your life, and you can see, you know, how you can use whatever experience is coming to you to align yourself with higher self in this case, and see the world as a creator, one creator creating everything. So in any case, just wanted to emphasize that point, because that's where the conversation is going to, in this question at least, and we'll have other stuff, you know, to talk about this. And this is why I guess I'm doing this whole introduction to this part of the question. But yeah, catalyst is there always, and it'll continue to increase. This was spoken 40 years ago, more than 40 years now, a couple months. But you know, we can see now the results of it. I mean, massive catalyst going on. But anyhow, you got my gist already, so let me go to what Ross says. Alright, so Ross says, the question must be answered in two parts. Firstly, the planetary catastrophes, as you may call them, are a symptom of the difficult harvest rather than a consciously programmed catalyst for harvest. Thus, we do not concern ourselves with it, for it is a random in respect to consciousness catalyst such as we may make available. Okay, so the first question, or the first part of the answer, is really what happens, because Don asked about the mismatch between consciousness and our planetary consciousness and the vibrations of forward density may be causing, let's call it friction, and that increased friction may cause catalyst. But what Ra is saying is that mismatch and that friction, what's causing is the planetary changes that we call catastrophes. We've been seeing this in nature, with the weather, with the extinctions, with patterns in terms of migration of the species and so on. I mean, everything in nature is disrupted. And these, I mean, we can even include here, I would like to include, I don't know if it's part of it, but I think as a industrial society, we also contribute to that. That is part of the friction because of our consciousness being so low. Again, population is not waking up to even the facts that we should stop using fossil fuels, and we should know that the whole fossil fuel is a scam because we have transcended that energy requirement a long time ago, and it's just put in place for economy because we are so blind with money that we just need to continue to produce money. It doesn't matter if we have to go destroy other planets for money for some reason. I mean, money is the carrot in front of the people's face for whatever it is. You know, we have to go to war because of money. Yes, we have to go to war. I have to kill your family because of money. Yes, you know, I have to, you know, put you some whatever. You know, There's always the excuse of money, because if somehow, God forbid, we run out of money, we can't eat. Nonsense. We have food. We have a planet that is always blooming with food. So it's just our methods of how we treat, any case. I'm going on rants here. But the point is that that's just, part of the whole planetary changes to me. Our destruction of the planet. What we call destruction. We're not going to destroy it, of course. We're not Maldic. And we're being guarded, at least, It's not going to happen. So, in any case, that's the first part of the question in terms of the mismatch of vibration between force density that is already happening in space-time and our dumb consciousness. Again, not to put down anybody, but just, it's dumb. In terms of consciousness, we're just dumb. All right, people will take it as it will. So, the second portion, as Ross says, the second portion is this. The results of the random catalyst of what you call the Earth changes are also random. Thus, we may see probability possibility vortices going towards positive and negative. However, it will be as it will be. The true opportunities for conscious catalysts are not a function of the Earth changes, but of the result of the seniority system of incarnations, which at the time of the harvest has placed in incarnation those whose chances of using life experiences to become harvestable are best. Okay, so the second portion of this, and this is where you can see the curve or the curving of this question in terms of how we perceive catalysts. There's a couple of things that I want to share here. And the first one is that let's go to the phrases that I think are important. They say that the random catalysts of what you call Earth changes are also random. The results of the random catalysts of what you call the Earth changes are also random. Thus, we may see probability possibility forces going, in terms of that. It's, again, this is why I preface the whole thing with how you perceive it. So it will be as it will be. So the catalyst, yes, it's happening there. You're seeing, the Earth changes, and how you react to these Earth changes, how you react to, from the industrial society that I just described, to the weather changes that are happening, and the extinction of animals, and all this what we may see as destruction of the planet, which, again, perceivably for the human, animals die. I don't eat animal products, but I'm not in the whole, we're killing animals, poor animals. I mean, internally, of course, I feel that's why I don't eat animal products, but in the end, it's not like animals die. That's natural. I think it's unnatural what we're doing to animals in factories and so on. That's why I don't eat animal products. But that's another thing. People oversensitive, and I think this is a very deterministic thing about the heart. People who are very open-hearted, they have this reaction to animals, and rightly so, of course. But they may extrapolate it and go a little bit extreme in terms of their beliefs. It becomes almost like a religion, in terms of veganism and so on. That you can't hurt any animal, you can't do anything to animals. I mean, animals will die. It's just how it is. And you will hurt animals. I mean, you walk on grass and you smash some insects while you're walking. Are you going to feel bad about that? That's just nature is that way. So how we react to it, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't care or you should care. I'm just saying that how we react to it, whether it be in an extreme, a balance, or the other extreme, and not giving a damn about animals, like that's just your reaction to the catalyst. So that's why they say the possibility probability vortices going towards positive and negative. It will be as it will be. It's there. How you do it depends entirely on yourself. So catalyst, it's not something that it's presented and it's going to create an outcome. Depends on the person doing the catalyzation, or to which the catalyst is accelerating their progress. So, all right, the true opportunities for conscious catalysts are not a function of the Earth changes, but of the result of the seniority system of incarnations. And here we're talking about, if you remember from, I forgot if it was session 17 or 18, around there, we talked about seniority of incarnation. when they talked about this, they said that there is a preference, like they said, those chances of using life experience to become more harvestable are the best. So those who, in essence, are in time space, waiting to be incarnated here and have a higher chance, they require less catalyst. And this is why the newer generation are said to have less catalyst than my generation, at least, or our parents' generations, because they don't need that much catalyst. They actually respond to catalyst in a more advanced way, and I can see that with my son. He's 13 years old, and you can see that his response seems to be so wise in relation to how I was when I was 13. Very wise, you know. And it's as much as I want to give credit to myself, I know it's not because of me. You know, like, I know where I can take credit of his, you know, his understandings, but other things, since he was a child, and it's not only because he's my child, but other children of his age, because I've had the opportunity to deal and talk to them, they just seem really wise. But the reality is that they have a seniority of incarnation, meaning that they have advanced to the point where they are harvestable. So they're given priority here because of harvest. This has gone increasingly more with after 2012, where harvest was started, let's call it. So again, you know, the function of the earth changes will have more opportunities for conscious catalysts depending on these, you know, these new entities that are coming here. So it also makes me think that if you are here, and this is probably the best message, I'll probably repeat it in the conclusions, but we have been placed here by our own selves in our time space because we knew we could deal with this catalyst. So the people who are in despair, and they are in indifference because they say, you know, why am I here? Why did I choose to be here? This is nonsense, you know, this is whatever. They are rejecting their own programming. Anything that's coming to them was programmed by themselves. So they are not recognizing who they are. We are here to deal with this stuff because we knew we were ready for everything that has happened in our lives. It's a beautiful way to see that your past doesn't even matter, because everything that you dealt with it already. In the present moment, all you need to know is that you're alive, that you have a shape or a form, or that you have a body, that you are a part of society, and there you make your choice. That is basically the whole. I have just, in, I don't know, 15 seconds, I just said, you know, the lessons of being in the eternal present. Make your choice. That's the third thing you need to realize. Make your choice. You either manipulate others, and you better do it really well, so you can polarize towards the negative with control, manipulation, and enslavement, or you can simply, you know that everybody is other selves, other you, and by knowing that, instinctually you become, hey, you know, all loving. I mean, unless you hate yourself, then you start hating other people. That's why other people are your mirrors. But in any case, you can use this by discarding everything in the past. And this is very Buddhist, you know, of me to say, of course. You know, the past doesn't exist. The past is just echoes of your memories. And whatever memories you have, you know, either they are, you know, so good that you still have attachments to that and you wish you could have that, or they're so bad that you can't, you know, you cringe at who you are based on what your past is. So all of that, we can just, you know, turn the page. Okay, I read that page, I know what happened. Great memories, all of them. They were created by you, for you. So, you know, it's a good way to reinforce all this stuff. So again, I'll probably repeat this in the conclusions because I think this is the best part. So in any case, that's what Ra is saying. This is how we deal with catalysts right now. It's the best way I can contextualize this, and I hope it makes sense. And better than that, I hope it's useful for what you're going through, especially in these days. All right. So Don says, next question. Is this seniority system also used for the service to self side, for becoming harvestable on that side? The answer is correct. You may ask one more full question at this time, Ra says, and I'll just make a quick pause here to say that obviously, this seniority, I mean, just like some people are incarnating here for positive, they're incarnating here for negative. So those who need to be polarized, because in the end, the creator doesn't care, for a more positive one or more negative. Those are biased that some people may have, and they work in conjunction. What we care is catalysts for people to make their decision, because we're not here to be harvested and recruited, unless, well, if you're following the negative path, then you are being recruited by the Orion group. And you have to serve them up until the point of you reach 6th density, where you just realize that, oh, okay, all of this was, for naught, because we're all one in the end. But in any case, that's just how it is. Negatives also come here to be polarized, and just like positives can come here and become negatively oriented can come here and become positive. So that is just a function of the will of the entity itself. All right, next question. Don says, okay, what I would like for you to do is list all the major mechanisms designed to provide catalytic experience that do not include interaction with other self. That's the first part of the question I'll ask. I think it's funny because Raj just said, well, you may ask one more full query, and Don says, all right, I would like you to list all the major mechanisms designed to provide... that's funny to me. I don't know, I can't help it. I think it's hilarious that Raj said, as usual, because they always said, this last question, and usually Don just asks something brief this time for some reason. He just said, all right, I want you to list all this stuff. Thankfully, Ra was pretty succinct, and they said, we grasp from this question that we realize that the primary mechanism of catalytic experience in 3rd density is other self. The list of other catalytic influences, firstly, the creator's universe, secondly, the self. All right, so Don is going to a different aspect here, and he wants to, I guess, go deeper into what are the catalytic experiences that are other than the self, or the other self, because we know, and Ra, repeated, and they said, we grasp that you understand that the primary mechanism of catalytic experience is the other self. From here, we can actually get a pretty good tangent, because when some people become spiritual, oriented and want to seek and all this stuff, there seems to be a need for solitude, or not want to deal with you because you're in such a lower consciousness and so on. That is such a strong mirror, for people who develop this spiritual pride, the spiritual ego, because even there, other people are being a mirror to you, because how come you feel yourself, at higher consciousness, or how come you feel like you don't belong anymore in society? How come, what is going on with you, and I can speak for it myself, because I left New York for that reason. I just couldn't deal with the energy anymore. But that's just, I'm following my path. That's another thing. Don't feel bad about anything that you find about yourself. Follow it. There's a reason for that. And, in this case, that it's the other self that's providing you with this catalyst. So the point is not to avoid dealing with the other self. The point is to not engage if you don't want to. That's fine. It's almost like saying, another person causes me harm, so that's my catalyst, and I need to just engage with that person and be abused by this person. No. If you don't want to engage, of course, you don't engage, but you don't avoid it completely. You don't avoid the experience. You take the experience and say, okay, why did I allow myself to be bothered by that? Why did I allow myself by dirty, whatever it was in the kitchen, plates and whatnot? Like, why is that bothering you? That's an introspective work that you do here, to relate to the other self and love the other self in their madness, in their problems, in their beauty, whatever. So that Ra is, talking about that. But then after that, the list of other catalytic influences are the creator's universe, and secondly, the self. So how you react to the universe, how you react to anything really. The creator's universe is, from anything in front of you that is material to the cosmos, the stars, how you react to that. And then the self, yourself, how do you react to the things that are naturally you? I'm not saying, how you react to other people, and that's you. I'm talking about the self as the unmanifested self, the being that's wanting to be. That is catalyst too. How you feel about a situation, how you feel, not so much about a situation, but how you feel about yourself being you. If you want to do some silly moves for some reason, you feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't be making silly moves. I'm very serious. I shouldn't be dancing or doing something. We all do that. In our spare time when nobody's watching. So how do you feel about that? That's the self. So Don is going to continue. I mean, this is why I said in the last video that it's a never-ending session. Don continues and says, can you list any subheadings under the self that would, or ways that the self is acted on catalytically to produce experience? Don's really pushing it here. Ross says, firstly, the self unmanifested. Secondly, the self in relation to the societal self, created by self and other self. Thirdly, the interaction between self and the gadgets, toys, and amusements of the self, other self invention. Fourthly, the self relationship with those attributes which you may call war and rumors of war. So, again, the question that Don asked, let me just reread it again. Subheadings under the self that would act as produce catalysts that would produce experience. In essence, the self that I just talked about, the silly self that is dealing, with who the self is. They say the self unmanifested. That's the one that I don't know, if you have pain for some reason or some sort of disease or impairment for whatever reason you don't know. That's the self unmanifested, and silly moves go there too. Secondly, the self in relation to the societal self, created by self and other self. In other words, how you feel that this self, the one that I am, how do I feel, in this society? How do I feel in the culture that I live in, and how in your relation to it? Sounds like third chakra, solar plexus all the way. Thirdly, the interaction between self and the gadgets, toys, and amusements. This, of course, is our relationship with ourselves, with other, these things that really take our time and our energy. We invest so much energy in these devices, and how do you deal with it? I'm not saying it's bad. It's how you interact with them. How do you use them for knowing yourself? What is it that is informing you? Again, all of this can be sound like, I shouldn't be doing this or I shouldn't be doing that. Nothing to do with that. It's catalyst given by the experience. Is just how do you react to it? It's almost like when they give you a trick question and you just want to see how you answer it. There's a guy that you may be familiar with in YouTube called 434, and I never forget one of the interactions that he had with machine elves, where he was talking about he was talking to them, and they wanted him to repair a ship or something, or they would draw something and tell them, we want you to see something here or answer this question. And whatever the answer, they were just satisfied with it, because it wasn't an intellectual answer that required a specific answer. It's just, how you interact with it. So, much in the same way is what you do. It reminds me even of The Little Prince, I think it's called in English. It's a French book where the little prince wanted, the person, one of the characters or the main character, to draw something, and he drew, what looked like a hat. It was just terrible drawing. He said that it was a terrible drawing, but it wasn't a hat. The little prince realized that it was a snake after eating an elephant, and he could read the intention in the drawing. So it's really how you interact, or in your intention. Great word here. How you have your intention in terms of that. So that's what it is. And with our electronics, our toys, whatever it is that we amuse ourselves with, those inventions, how we interact with those. And fourthly, the self-relation with those attributes which we call war and rumors of war. War is probably the biggest manifestation of negatively oriented agendas. We go to war because we have that. However, see, and this falls into the same category. I'm not saying that everybody that goes to war, like say, you know, the military, the vast majority of them, they're doing it for a good reason. I mean, we can see it differently, but they think, you know, they're being heroes by defending their country because that's how they brainwash them. Again, you know, not to be offensive, but that's just, you know, how it works. And, you know, killing other people should never be justified for any reason from my respect. But see, some people may see it, you know, as them defending, you know, their family, their friends, their country, they're patriotic and so on. So, you know, how you react to that. So again, I'm not saying, you know, that it's good or bad to go to war and kill other people. I may have my own biased opinions on it, but it's how you react. It's a catalyst, how you react to that. And I'll bring to conclusion on this question the example of Muhammad Ali. You know, he was required to go to Vietnam, and you know, he said, "To hell with it, I'm not going." You know, and he had to, you know, be stripped down from his titles and his boxing career for a couple of years. And see, he used that experience and the catalyst to become even more, I don't like the word famous in this way, but, you know, he became a sort of, what's the word? I can't even think of the word. Public announcer. You know, he just became a public figure talking about, you know, against the Vietnam War. You know, he used that in a way to say, this is not the fighting that I'm talking about, that I like. You know, I want to have an artistic type of, you know, sport. This is not the same. Like, I'm going to kill people, innocent people. That's not me. So that is a reaction to war or rumors of war that I can fit into this, you know, that Ra is saying. And you can see, I mean, I relate a lot with Muhammad Ali. I don't know what you think, but I believe that was a very noble way of saying no to war. I'm not going. At least I don't care what you do, but I'm staying here, and I'll go to jail if I have to. I mean, he didn't say that. He actually said that he wouldn't go to jail or go to war or to the military. He would just like, you know, justice. So, in any case, let's go to the next question. So, 33.16. Don says, I was thinking possibly the catalyst of physical pain. How does this go under this heading? Ra says, this is correct. Oh, maybe I read the question wrong. I was thinking possibly the catalyst of physical pain. Does this go under this heading? The heading of self? Yes. Ra says this is correct. It going under it being the catalyst of pain. Going under the heading of the unmanifest self. That is the self which does not need other self in order to manifest direct. That's a pretty simple and straightforward one. Don says, do we have enough time left to ask the second part of this question, which is to list all major mechanisms designed to provide the catalysts that include action with other self? Do we have enough time for that? I don't know why Don was like, I mean, he was excited with these questions. So, in any case, he's just asking, again, I got lost laughing. Do we have enough time left to ask the second part of this question, which is to list all major mechanisms designed to provide the catalysts that include action with other self? And Ra is going to say, you have much time for this, for we may express this list in one of two ways. We could speak infinitely, or we could simply state that any interaction between self and other self has whatever potential for catalysts that there exists in the potential difference between self and other self. This moderated and undergirded by the constant fact of the creator as self and as other self. You may ask to this question further if you wish specific information. And if you think the session is ending here, you are wrong. We still have much more to go. Couple of things I can take out of this. First, you know, Don wanted to know more on the headings or subheadings and the major mechanisms that provide catalysts that include action with other self. This being the primary. we explored already the ones that are not primary. So, or the primary, say call it, this is catalyst provided by other self. So we went back to that. And Ra is saying, that, this really is, how can you create or expand on this other than saying that it's completely infinite, because your reaction with other self depends on the mismatch that you have with that other self. Why? Because if we know that another person is the creator and you are the creator, whatever difference you see between them and you, which is natural, is catalyst that is there. That's what they're saying when they say, let's see, they say two ways. We can speak infinitely because that, or we could simply state that any interaction between a self and other self, between me and you, has whatever potential for catalyst there exists. Because, listen, if I see you as a brother and I love you for that, or as a sister, that's great. We see each other pretty much almost like creator to creator, which is not necessary for this density, but it's a good metric, for us to see, how can I see the creator in you? That is the way. But on the other extreme, I may see you as a monster, as a, I don't want to see you. You are, white, black, Asian, you're taller, you're fat, you're whatever. You're not me. You're something completely different than me. I'm so proud of my country. I'm so proud of my physique. Whatever. All those illusions of separation that I may have with you, that is my catalyst. So it's beautifully said here, and I just love the way how do they use these words? I don't know. Ra shocks me. They say this is moderated and undergirded by the constant fact of the creator as self and as other self. That's what they mean. The potential difference between self and other self. That's it. I can't say it any better than, whatever difference there is between you and another person, and you perceive it as such, that is your catalyst. That right there. Whatever you see, in another person, you may not see it with a beloved because you love him and you're like, you are mine, that's why you're mine. This is where, third density romance can get really out of control, when you are so in love with somebody and you say, wow, you're so me that I love you because I love myself. So it becomes a little scary. But see, the difference is, the villain. Oh, the villain he's not me. He's completely opposite of me. Well, that villain, is great catalyst for you. The beloved, not so much. Unless, when you get, obviously, you get married or you start living with the person, you start seeing all those things that you say like, well, you're not like me, actually. You're different. That's catalyst too. So whatever difference, I'm just putting extremes here. So it illustrates the point. All right, so let's go to more questions, because remember when 20 questions ago, Ross said that was the last one? And Don says, I believe that is sufficient for the time being. And Ross says, all right, do you have a brief query or two before we close this working? But Ross seems to like it, because they say a brief query or two. Hey, listen, you want to keep asking questions? We love to answer. So I just think this is funny. I put it just as it's in the re-listen version. Don says, just a minute. I don't think that anything I could ask at this time would be brief enough. Just a minute. Sounds of papers being handled. Yes, there's one question. Is there any difference in violet ray activity or brightness between entities who are at the entrance level to 4 density, positive and negative? Really good question to finish this up. Ross says, this is correct. The violet ray of the positive 4 density will be tinged with the green, blue, indigo triad of energies. This tinge may be seen as a portion of a rainbow or prism. As you know it, the rays being quite distinct. The violet ray of 4 density negative has in its aura, shall we say, the tinge of red, orange, yellow. These 3 rays being muddied rather than distinct. Why this is such a cool question is because they perceive us as a combination of our energies and our colors in our aura in the violet ray. So violet ray, crown chakra, is where we sum up all our colors, all our chakras. And they perceive it, and they say, for harvest, they just see, how bright they are in terms of polarization, which is needed, for, they're not picking you like, a vegetable. You are the one. I mean, they know, they need to know if they're moderating this, in terms of incarnation and so on, and they can see maybe, I mean, this it's just a vision that they have from the point of view they stand. But anyhow, I'm not here to defend anything. People would see it as they will. But in any case, that view allows them to see who is negative and who's positive. The positive ones, as you can see, because the energy flowing from your 3 lower chakras are being used to energize the upper ones. That's why the tint is green, heart, blue, throat, indigo, third eye, and it's very distinct. So the positively oriented entity, or that is, for harvest, ready for harvest, exudes these colors. It's like a prism, of these colors, and they're very distinct. Whereas the other one, the negative, is close in the heart, not using, of course, the throat chakra, and using the indigo. So the mixture of it would be of the 3 lower ones, because it's being so energized by this closing of the heart and strongly polarizing towards the negative that the tinge is red, orange, and yellow. Red, orange, yellow. And these 3 rays are kind of like mixed, muddy, rather than distinct. So that's just, how they see it. I thought it was a very cool question. Not much we can take out of this other than, the beauty of the art, the interdimensional art. So, Don, I told you, this is a never-ending session. I think we have 20 more questions from Don. Don says, just as a slight appendix to that question, what would the rays of 5th and 6th density look like? Ra goes at length. We may speak only approximately. However, we hope you understand, shall we say, that there is a distinctive difference in the color structure of each density. 5th density is perhaps best described as extremely white in vibration. The 6th density of a whiteness which contains a golden quality as you would perceive it. These colors having to do with the blending into wisdom of the compassion learned in 4th density. Then, in 6th, the blending of wisdom back into a unified understanding of compassion viewed with wisdom. This golden color is not of your spectrum, but is what you would call alive. You may ask one more question, briefly. You think Don ask one more question? We'll find out. This is how 5th and 6th density is seen, in terms of their colors, right? I think that was the question. What would the rays of 5th and 6th density look like? Yes. So, here's the thing. We perceive colors in a way that is not the same way that other entities perceive energy, because colors are just a manifestation of energy. Just like your body is a manifestation of energy, sound is a manifestation of energy, electricity, heat, so on. All energy is vibrating differently, and it depends on the configuration of this octave. Obviously, every octave has different layers or densities of consciousness, infinitely, of course. But in our layer cake of densities that we associate ourselves as a mind-body-spirit complex, we perceive things differently in one of those. I actually drew it here for my Spanish channel. I made a video talking about the densities of consciousness, and that's what you see in the background if you can see it. Those layers, the perception of vibrations is different, and this is present here in Ra's answer, but they're using the term color, to kind of answer this question. And they say, that there is a distinctive difference in the color structure of each density. To me, that means vibration. 5th density is perhaps best described as extremely white in vibration. See? Extremely white because For some reason, I don't know. I'm not a physicist, in interdimensional physicist. I'm not even a physicist here. So there's an intrinsic value in terms of fifth density vibrations that makes it seem sort of white, very, very white. The sixth density of a whiteness, which contains a golden quality because it's kind of mixed with fourth and fifth. Of course, when you move to sixth density, you're balancing. Your lessons are of balancing love and wisdom. So the mixture of those two vibrations that you're dealing with those two vibrations, then the perception of it would be of a golden quality. Why? I don't understand. I don't really know. But we know that the golden quality is perceived not only by esoteric, talking about the pure energy of the cosmos is of a golden quality. It's more white than golden, but it's almost like a white tinge with gold. And I remember a shaman telling me this, back in the days, when they were talking about, what you see, because you may see this in a psychedelic experience or plant medicine work, an altered state of consciousness, but it's very much expressed with people who have taken large doses of DMT, smoked DMT, which I'm not really a fan of. Never done it. I don't think I would ever do it. And even to a greater extent, Bufo alvarius, which is that little frog that has that more potent tryptamine that I love. I just connected that it says tryptamine. What a trip. People report seeing this brightness, this gold, really bright light that is pure energy. So because of that, maybe that's what people are seeing. And because you're actually, I'll just talk about Bufo alvarius here and just my speculation. This is why I believe it's not such a helpful thing for people who are in their not knowing too much about spirituality, dimensions, state of consciousness, death, and all that, because it's a really huge experience. It's not a vision. It's not something. It's something that it's a huge experience. So I don't want to linger here too much, but that is what they're seeing. And how can they comprehend it if they are in a third density consciousness? Plus, they're pretty much asleep. And I'm talking about people who are, very much in need of therapy, and they go to these sessions and they are, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's how useful can it be if you're not aware of so many other things and the misdirection that you may have. Now you're open to influences from both sides. Anyhow, I might make another video talking about this. It's a delicate topic in any case, because it may sound like I'm being, biased one way or another. I'm just trying to depict, as usual, as philosophers do, we tend to do, is just, challenge the notion of what people are doing, to provoke, a sort of introspection. That's all I'm trying to do. In any case, that's the golden light I think they're talking about when they talk about this. They're talking about sixth density, and that's, to me, it makes sense. It may not be. I'm just, rambling here. All right, last question. Aha. Then I will ask if there's anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact. This is a question that I never include, but for two reasons I wanted to include it here. First, because it was a never-ending session, and second, because Ross says, this working is well. You are attempting to be conscientious. We thank you. We may say we enjoy your vision of our social memory complex drinking one of your liquids while speaking through this instrument. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite creator, Adonai. So, well, first of all, yeah, the last question was like 7 questions ago, but I wanted to include this because I'm not sure why they said this the first time. If you read the other sessions, they talk about the the contact and all this stuff, but they say here that they enjoy his vision, Don's vision of Ra drinking something from Earth. I don't know what that meant. I kind of researched, but I couldn't find anything. If you know, or if you do a research on this, let me know in the comments, because I thought it was funny, and they thought it, was funny too. They said they enjoyed it, so whatever. So yeah, that's the end of the session. Adonai, they say, and I say conclusions. We took out, I think the best, like I said, was that how we process catalyst and how we see catalyst. And I honestly forgot what I said back then, so rewind to that part if you want to hear it again, because I'll probably forget now. But yeah, the way we take catalyst is really what's important, how we use this reality that is coming to us because we program it. We made this reality. We didn't make the elites out there trying to manipulate us. We didn't make, the decadence in society. We didn't make, the destruction of nature and so on. But we are here to react to it. And, people may say, I'm going to protest, because that's fine. That's what you're here for. Good luck. Good deal. Go forth. Then rejoicing in the power of the one creator. Do it. Whatever you feel that you are here for, just do it. I think that's the best reaction that we can have. Don't think about it too much. You know, your intuition knows. But it helps to know, to come out of that victimhood complex where we feel that we're victims of society. We're victims of, oh, my higher self put me here. I've heard this a lot. This is why I'm mentioning it. I've heard a lot of people saying, I don't understand my higher self. Why am I here, in all this mess? I would not have decided. You can see the human mind getting there and saying, I would not have decided to be here at this time, in whatever. I don't understand my higher self. You don't have to. All you need to do is, this is why faith is important. If you know it, then you don't have faith, and if you have faith, you don't need to know it. So you just need to flow with whatever it is, whatever happened to you. I'm not saying don't have a reaction, be, completely neutral, or force yourself to be neutral. React to it. If you are, in agony, react to agony. If you're sad, react with sadness. Don't try to control yourself. Controlling is the worst thing we can do. But it helps to know in the background of our minds that we decided to do all this stuff. We decided to put ourselves through all this, and that's just, it will be as it will be. But Catalyst is there. Catalyst was programmed for us, by us, because we knew we could deal with it. When we program ourselves, we knew what the planet was at the time when we said, if we go right, and this is why I think, death comes earlier, because of the, for a lot of people, because of their inability to deal with the current situation. This is why, longevity has to do with how, calm you are, no stress, you're fine. And I mean, we can go on for a while here, but that is, just how it works. Unused catalyst always ends up in the physical body and is processed as illness. So why go through that? If you want to, I mean, fine, but now that you're aware of it, just be as much you as you can. That is the best way I can put this. As much you as you can. And there you will find that there are a lot of blockages, that are put by yourself because of external influences. So anyhow, this is it for session 33. I hope this conclusion is as well useful as usual. Session 34, we'll talk about other stuff. Now we're getting more mixed in terms of, there's a lot of personal stuff there from the LNL research group, Don, Jim, and Carla. But there's some other stuff there. We'll get to that. I thank you very much for always watching this. Now seem to be, the thing for an hour. So thank you very much for tuning into the Law of One material, the raw material, and also for listening to me ramble about, my interpretations and my takes on things like this. I hope you're creating a better, coherent model of philosophy for the creation and how you feel with life. That is the purpose of this. My purpose usually is to to share my coherent philosophy, the way I see it for myself, so others can maybe reflect on that and create their own structure. So with that in mind, again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in session 34.